community. So thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Van Sweden. Councillor Kushner.
Thank you very much, Convener, and I shall begin, if I may, by welcoming you to your role, and also to the Vice Convener. I wish you well. I also want to put on record my thanks to Councillor Allard for his engagement over a number of years within this role. It is just regretful that he now has more time to continue poorly running the Council. Turning to the report, I welcome the ongoing work of the Council with partner organisations and third sector organisations. That is all good work here. Yet, I think we need to be a bit more honest. It's still broad brush in places, and it could be sharper on what has changed, on the detail and the granularity of what drives issues. That can only inform our work, Convener. So, starting with the economic context, if we look at the section on food inflation and cost of living, that's a good example of where there's more nuance needed rather than the broad brush which is within the report. Yes, prices are higher than they were in 2020-21, but food inflation has come down from its high. It peaked in March 23. As of 24, it was around 1 to 3%, but it remains sticky around 5% at the moment. The issue which the report doesn't deal with is that it's not just food inflation, it's that prices don't naturally come back to where they were before. That increase is effectively baked in. So it's not necessarily a temporary spike, it's a long-term affordability issue, and it needs more of a strategic response. It means focusing not just on price, but on skills and behaviour and how we can support that. There's a cultural element here that needs to be recognised and grappled with. My parents' generation didn't need to cook in the same way that their parents' generation did. The ease of ready meals and convenience and two households, or the two parents within a household working, has changed that. The reality, however, remains that whole food cooking is still the cheapest way to fund a household. And if you know how to cook, you know how to bulk out that more expensive meat to make it go further. So I recognise and I welcome the investment in food classes and food skills. It's something that we should be prioritising and building up for our early prevention. Because, you know, if we look at the data and we look back to the 60s and 70s, you know, people were spending at least 40% of their household budget on food. We're now looking at the kind of high social economic group, we're looking at about 11%, up to kind of 16% for lower social economic groups. So there has been a significant change. And supermarkets have played a key role in that, in driving down prices and improving access. Just a simple example, the humble banana is now cheaper than it was in the 1990s because of competition and supply systems, looking at kind of 90 pence a kilo. So there are benefits there. So I think, as I've outlined, Convener, the picture is actually more complicated than the report suggests, and a broad brush really isn't appropriate here. We need to be clearer about the long-term issues and what we're doing. As well, on work, you know, and as Councillor Gregg has noted, we continue to have high rates of employment in Aberdeen. Aberdeen is really more like an American city with its level of private sector work compared to the public sector in the comparisons. It's also a fair challenge, I think, from the Joseph Rowntree Foundation in their most recent report around a work-first approach. Work remains the best route out of poverty, but we do see around, I think it's 30 to 40%, depending year to year, of those on universal credit are in work. So that low wage economy is somewhere where we need to see, and we need to see the economic growth in the country to drive that forward. So that kind of ties in with our amendment later on in the report about supporting clearer pathways to work and helping people to progress in society, which is ultimately better for our city and better for our citizens. We do believe, Convener, that we need a clearer link between activity, spend and impact. There's a lot of description of activity within the report, but not always a clear sense of what difference it is making. I know that we've referenced the indicators where they're not improving, and we should be looking at that, see where it's going, and being clearer about who's responsible for it and timescales for trying to reduce or improve indicators. And that's something that the Joseph Rowntree Foundation have also picked up when they've looked at the Scottish Government's Child Poverty Action Plan. The government has missed their interim targets and they're on track to miss their longer term targets. And as the Joseph Rowntree Foundation has said, and I agree with them, we need to be much clearer about how we're going to ultimately meet targets rather than just detailing activity to make sure that we are benefiting the city and our citizens. On communities, convener, there's a lot of good work, and that's, I think, brought out in the next report. And we need to be clearer about how the community can help the community, given the funding pressures that we have as a council and the benefits that they give. And I think we still tend to take as default a fairly statist, government-led approach. You know, at the last meeting we were talking about the council creating more green spaces and then being responsible for those costs. Yet what we have before us today is the Gairn Community Garden within my ward actually taking forward that themselves. So let's empower the community to help the community rather than taking the statist government approach first. Convener, we welcome the work. We welcome the partnership approach. What we want to see is, I think, more of finesse in what we're saying, because the broad brush approach doesn't actually give the full detail of where we're at, nor the cultural or other issues within there that we need to be targeting if we are going to be improving equality, improving people's lives. So on that basis, convener, I will be moving my amendment, and I look forward to hearing from Councillor Brooks.
Thank you, Councillor Kushner. Councillor